Hello, hello, welcome. I think we're ready to get started.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, so hello, welcome. Suzanne, are you ready to take it away for our big introduction?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yeah.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Suzanne Vernado, a volunteer with AARP Louisiana. Before we start today's cooking show, I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you something about AARP. In 1958, Dr. Percy Andrus, a retired teacher, established AARP. Today, AARP is the world's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization with a nationwide network of staff, volunteers, and partners helping more than 100 million Americans 50 and older achieve health security, financial empowerment, and personal fulfillment. In Louisiana, we have over 400,000 members with offices located in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Presently, our offices are closed due to the pandemic. However, we are still offering programs, events, and learning opportunities via virtual platforms such as this. AARP is committed to helping you take control of your health as you age. We want to empower you to know that prevention is possible by making better food choices that focus on improving nutrition. We're happy to sponsor Wellness Wednesdays in partnership with Tulane University Gold Rank Center for the Culinary Medicine to help you achieve positive health goals by adapting good cooking and eating habits. Joining us today from AARP Louisiana is Lynetta McIver, Director of Multicultural Outreach and Engagement, and several of our volunteers. We'll also be cooking along with Chef Amber Dyer, the Assistant Program Director and Chief Instructor at the Gold Rank Center for Culinary Medicine. Welcome, everyone. And now, before we start cooking, let's begin our Ask the Chef segment with Amber. Hello, Amber.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna leave for Heather, our program director, to give a quick intro of the technology side real quick, just so everybody has the best view of the whole class.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this awesome class today with AARP. We are really excited to be here cooking with you all today. I did just want to mention a couple of things in case you're not a Zoom expert. We are recording this session for AARP, but I wanted to mention too, I'm going to spotlight Chef Amber's video right now. And at some point later, I will be spotlighting her stove camera too, so that you can see a really good shot of her stove while she's cooking. Now, in order for you to see this spotlight throughout the class session, you're going to want to make sure that your view on Zoom is set to the speaker view. If you're on a computer, that should be in the upper right-hand corner. There should be a little box that says view. And if you click that, you can switch back and forth between speaker and gallery. If you're on a tablet, you may need to swipe left or right like this across your, going across the screen to get it set correctly. If anybody has any questions about that, feel free to message in the chat box and I can help walk you through that if needed. We hope to make this a really fun class for you today. I know that myself and Chef Amber are really excited. We also have a special guest joining us. Our new culinary nutrition intern, Janielle, is here. She's waving right now if you can see her in her little box. She's cooking from her home kitchen as well today. So, hi, Janielle. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Amber, and she's going to get us started for this Ask the Chef session.
Fantastic. So today well, y'all know what we're making. Today we're going to be making a teriyaki shrimp and vegetable stir fry with some quinoa and brown rice mix, and then some mango banana sorbet. So I printed off all of my recipes so that way it's really easy for me to cook along. I also like to make sure with our gold ring recipes, I really love that it gives you an idea of the prep time, the total time, as well as the nutrition. That way we have a really good understanding of how long it's going to take us to make it, and then what we're eating when we get it. The really great thing about the Gold Ring Center is that we're really focusing on trying to make sure that everything we're making is really mindful in being super flavorful, really tasty, but also happens to be healthy and happens to be really good for you. And so talking about really great points about why it's good for you, whether it be the added sugar, not having added sugars. We'll talk about fiber, sodium, those types of things. That way we can be really mindful to conditions like hypertension, diabetes, those types of things. So first things first, I always like to talk about is what's happening behind the camera, right? So I always talk about with all of our students, we primarily teach our community members as well as medical students for Tulane University, is I have everything mise en place. Mise en place means a place for everything in its place. So I'll show you, I got a lot of containers, mainly because I'm indecisive and I don't know what size I will want. And I'm trying really hard to not have to move around my kitchen. This is not the time that I'm trying to get my steps in because I'm trying to be really efficient. So I have a bowl spot for all the, when I cut things, I have a spot for them to go. And then I have all of my ingredients pre-measured. So it's really easy for me to cook and not have any problems of being something burning while I'm trying to get my other things together. So I'm really trying to be super mindful of taking out all the barriers that make cooking a nuisance and make cooking a pain in the butt, honestly. And so I'd like to point out to everyone, I'm what I call a lazy chef, and I've owned that. I try to make sure that I'm taking out any of the extra work out of things because I want to make sure it's as efficient as possible. And I'm really trying to be thinking about what things I can do to remove those. So maybe that means using frozen vegetables, maybe that means pre-cutting things. And so I'm really trying to be thinking about what things I can do ahead of time so that way the cooking process is a breeze and I can just be de-stressing and enjoying the cooking process. Okay, so the couple things that I want to talk about during this first portion of today is really trying to think about a couple of the ingredients. First thing is the shrimp. I know shrimp as a whole is really talked about as a salty food, right? And so we have some references that we'll drop into the chat talking about what the whole big deal is about shrimp. I personally really love shrimp. These are the shrimp I'm using today. They're Gulf shrimp. And so we are looking at trying to think of what stages we can buy it. We can buy it peeled and deveined. We can buy it pre-cooked. We can buy it shell on. We can buy it head on. When we teach classes in person, we keep the heads on because we think it's a fun lesson for everybody to learn. But today I have heads off. And the reason I really like buying shrimp that have the shells on is because there's a little bit less of those stabilizers that they're putting in to keep our shrimp from sticking together or to keep them nice and plump. And we're just looking at things on there that are just add sodium. Those preserves, those additives that they're putting in to preserve the shrimp just is added sodium in some cases. And so for us, we could be looking at anything between 100 milligrams per portion of shrimp to 8. And so that's a lot. And so we're really trying to think about looking at the back of that nutrition label because every bag of shrimp is going to have some type of nutrition label, and you can look to see what the preservatives are. You can look to see what the additives are and the sodium. And so that's really the big difference of trying to compare the different options. And so as Heather's mentioning in the chat, we're super lucky here in Louisiana that's super easy to access fresh local shrimp. And Gulf shrimp, I'm sure everybody agrees, they're just really amazing. And so these are something that we're able to get fresh off the boat. These are something that we're able to do like a flash freeze So there's a lot of different options. The other thing I like to point out is the numbers on the back of the shrimp. You'll see a little, would be like a 1820 or something smaller. These are the numbers of how many shrimp you can get per pound. And so when we're writing our recipes at Gold Ring, we're writing them per pound or in a weight measurement, because it really doesn't matter what size you buy. It's whatever you like best. Okay, I'm talking a lot, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start debating these. I'm sure we got some shrimp experts in this group. So if anyone has some advice on how to handle their shrimp, please cue in. I personally like to have a separate cutting board so that way I can easily move it out of the way. I like to have a paper towel just so I can wipe off some of these shrimp. And then I use a paring knife because it gives me a lot of control. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my scrap bowl and put all of the shells directly into the bowl. And I'm doing that by just moving my thumb off the center of the legs and then pulling back on the rest of the shell. And I just have a spot of any time I have to wipe off my hands. I got a nice spot and I don't have to get my dish towel dirty. Heather bought me my dish towel and I try to keep it as fresh as possible. Anyone have any questions that are burning? I know I'm going to talk about grains soon. Are there any seafood related questions? I'm just sliding my thumb up the center and then pulling back on the rest of that shell.
I was curious if anybody's cooking along with us this morning.
Mute.
Cooking.
Lonetta's cooking. Well, if anybody's cooking and you have a burning question as we move along, feel free to unmute yourself. We mostly have everybody muted just to keep this quiet so everyone can hear really well. But, we don't want you to feel like you have to stay quiet the whole time. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask us. I'm sharing an article right now in the chat box. I just think this is kind of interesting because it's something we don't always think about with shrimp, but frozen shrimp are a great option, particularly because they are so convenient, right? You buy them in a bag. Usually, you can get a pound bag or a 2-pound bag. And if they're having a good sale at the grocery store that week, they can be pretty cost effective. And they just make for a really great, convenient meal because they're frozen, but they take no time at all to defrost. And I see Beverly saying she cleaned her shrimp last night and prepped them, which is great. It's always good when you can take those little shortcuts and get ahead. But I think the thing that we should just be mindful of is that frozen shrimp typically is going to be treated with some type of sodium-based additive, and it's not there to hurt you. It's really there to make them appear fresher, be a little plumper. It can often add to the weight, so it can be a little tricky there. But the thing is, if you're watching your sodium, it's just something you want to be mindful of. But as Amber's going to talk about today, I'm sure, as she continues on with this, the way we try to approach nutrition here at the Gold Ring Center is a bit of an everything in moderation approach, right? So, maybe you don't eat shrimp every day of the week. You stick to eating it sometimes, you have it as sort of a treat and you're just mindful of that. And maybe when you're using shrimp, if it does have, a little bit of extra sodium in it from buying a frozen product that has that, maybe you're just a little bit more mindful about how much sodium you put in the rest of your dish. And Amber's going to be demonstrating, this recipe is going to be great because, I'm going to share the recipe itself in the chat box for anybody that needs a copy of that right now. But we're able to create a delicious dish and keep the sodium in check. It's a big thing for us here. So
I have a question. What's the difference between
It's definitely.
between the pink shrimp, the white shrimp, and I always see and prefer Louisiana Gulf shrimp? Is there a taste difference?
There isn't. So the temperature of shrimp is reflective of the water temperature that they grow up in and the food sources that they have. So sometimes we'll see shrimp that have a slightly different color if they're farm raised versus if they're from the ocean. But also you'll see based upon when they were harvested of time of year. In the Gulf, you can see both those grayish shrimp as well as the pink. Now, if they're super duper pink, like bright pink and they're white, usually it means that they're cooked or that they had added colors given to them and their food sources when they're farm raised. But there's no taste difference, there's no flavor difference. It's mainly just seeing about what the food sources is. I do know that a lot of people prefer pink shrimp, so it's very similar to like how they feed flamingos added colors in the zoo, just so that way they can stay brightly colored. Okay, so I'm gonna devein my shrimp. The safest way to do that is by putting the belly side down, and I'm just cutting off the back. The reason we do this is because shrimp have 3 different tracts. They have a digestive tract, which is the one we're removing. They have a reproductive tract, which is also next to that. And then they have their equivalent to like their veins, and that's on the bottom. That one's fine. We just try to remove any of the stuff on the top that could be less tasty. Usually that means that's going to be gritty. And we don't really want to have gritty shrimp, so we try to avoid that. And I'm just using the back of my knife and then wiping it off on my napkin, so that way all this can just go straight in the trash together and I don't have to worry about stinking up my washer machine. All right, this one had an egg sac. Those are roe. Those roe are the things that we're talking about where it's their eggs. I know a lot of people just devein their shrimp. It's completely fine. It's completely based upon preference. I personally just like to do it so that way I have just shrimpy flavor, no sandy flavor. Mm-hmm. And I know that this is a very time-consuming process, so I try to just make it something where in the cooking process, I'm listening to music. It's something I like to do together. I got very lucky. I married a chef, so the 2 of us are always cooking together. But it's something that's really fun to get your little humans, if you know any little humans in the kitchen, because we could also do this with a steak knife and be really safe about it.
Yeah, Amber, I always joke around that
This process really
have eaten a lot of shrimp veins in my life and nothing bad's ever happened to me, but I do think it's nice when you can take the extra time to take it out. You get a better visual product, and like you said, you won't have any chance of getting that like grittiness.
And that's really what we're doing in restaurants. We're removing that so that way it just adds that level of flavor that makes it just pure seafood and not having to deal with any of that added muckiness, you know?
So when I have a recipe that calls for a large amount of shrimp, like gumbo, would it matter if the shrimp are deveined or not, or should I try to devein the 5 pounds of shrimp? Which I don't, my husband does, and I always say that's a lot of work. So would it make a difference in the recipe, you think?
I can answer this one. So normally when my grandma makes gumbo, she makes it for like holidays. So what we normally do, we meet as a family and we all get a job the day before Christmas or Thanksgiving. And we sit down, one person peels the shrimp, one person deveins the shrimp, and then she either keeps the shrimp shells for stock to use later on, or we throw them away. But normally we do it the day before we cook the gumbo so that we don't have to waste the whole day trying to peel and devein them.
Oh, well, thank you. Good advice. I love the shrimp stock.
Oh, yeah. Trying to use, we reduce that waste and try to use those if we can.
Hi, Amber. Question, this is Cynthia. Question for you, please. I'm told that those veins are the waste of a shrimp. Is that a fact or not?
Yes, ma'am. So this one I'm removing is like it's a digestive tract, and then right next to it might be its reproductive tract. So it's fish egg. Sorry, shrimp eggs.
Oh,
So
but
I
not poop.
try to remove them just because I don't want their digestive tract is mainly just sand.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
it's
not
mostly
poop.
just sand is what they're eating.
Okay,
So
not
that gets stuck in there. Some
yes.
restaurants, it's their of poop. For me, restaurants will feed their live shrimp as well as their mollusks. So their mussels, their oysters, their clams. They usually feed them they add flour to their water, so that way their digestive tract gets filled with flour instead of getting filled with sand. So the sand comes out and it switches out in its system, which is interesting to me. Personally, I get it. I get why that happens when they cook them and you don't taste raw flour. So that's definitely an option. I've personally never been able to do that in person, but I don't see why someone couldn't do something like that at home too. But ultimately, restaurants like to do that because, as you can see, this takes a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, now that my shrimp are good to go, that's my mise en place for my shrimp. I'll rinse them off a little, is our grains today. So I'm really excited. Genuinely, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know that this recipe was going to work. A med student came up with it. And sometimes med students just come up with things that I'm like, oh, bless your heart, that won't work. And then it does. So they used a brown rice cooking technique and then applied it to mixing it just equally with quinoa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brown rice and my quinoa, and I'm going to mix them in the blend. The fun thing about grains, I really like doing blends because it makes everybody in the household happy. It makes it so that the people that really like rice and they're a little bit hesitant to trying new things, that they can use the brown, they are okay with the brown rice. But also it absorbs a lot of the flavor, right? We really love rice because it absorbs the flavors of the food that we're cooking and absorbs the sauces. Whereas quinoa is really great because it's a complete protein. It's one of the only sources of complete protein from a plant source. Usually you can find it in white. I'm using red today because I think it's fun. And then they also have black there. So you can get all kinds of rainbows of quinoa. And the really good thing about it is if we're trying to do blends, then we're able to add extra types of miscellaneous micronutrients, right? Because every type of grain, every type of color of the foods that we eat, all are going to provide different nutrients for us. And as I say in our kids class, we say eat the rainbow because it's really true. We want to get as many colors in our diet as possible because all those colors are represented. They're represented by phytonutrients. Phytonutrients meaning that they show color. But that's how we get to see. So today when we're making our dishes, I'm going to be cooking with all types of colors of vegetables because I want to be able to have the greens and the oranges and the reds because I really love lots of colors when I'm eating because it makes me want to eat more of it. And so it's the same thing with the grains that we're making. I know some people really are just stuck on wanting to do like a white rice or white pasta, but they have it's come a long way in the last 5-10 years of just having really flavorful pastas. You can get chickpea pastas, lentil pasta, all those and people are like, well, why would I eat that? And it's because all those are going to have different types of complementary proteins, which means that if we add a grain with a vegetable or a legume, then we're able to get a complete protein. And we're trying to eat lots of plant-based proteins because it's going to make us it's going to give us the same thing as the animal protein without having to have all that added saturated fat and cholesterol. The other thing I really love about grains is they're really high in fiber. I personally am all right, I'm obsessed with fiber. I've got to be honest. I know everybody says that the secret to life is all these miscellaneous things, but truthfully for me, the answer is fiber because it can do everything between helping regulate your cholesterol. It can help even hunger, get real hangry. You can ask my whole team. And so if I'm eating fiber, I'm going to be less cranky because I can stay satiated throughout the day, as well as those things like regulating our digestive system that everybody hears about, right? But my favorite thing is about that leveling the cholesterol, leveling our blood sugar, and really helping with those types of things, and my hangry, honestly. And so the really great thing about all of our whole grains just mean that they're going to be completely intact. They're going to have their bran, they're going to have their endosperm. You don't need to know all those miscellaneous words. It just means that it's going to be the way it started. A refined grain just means, or refined anything just means it started as a bigger product and they reduced it down and simplified it. And usually that's what happens when we're having our white grains. So we're trying to usually avoid that. We're doing some type of blend, whether it means do half white rice and half brown rice, or sometimes that means trying to do white pasta every now and then, but still doing our darker grains. And as Heather mentioned, at the Teaching Kitchen at the Goldring Center of Culinary Medicine, we're always talking about doing things in moderation. We're always talking about meeting people where they're at. So maybe you have a real cranky husband who does not want to eat brown rice or doesn't want to eat whole wheat pasta. That's okay, because we can do things in between. We can do things like change our tortilla to corn tortillas instead of white flour tortillas. That's a whole grain. We can add more popcorn or corn in general, because corn's a whole grain. And then we can add miscellaneous things like adding some quinoa to our white rice, to our brown rice, and really just add in those whole grains without having to compromise making our miscellaneous household members cranky, or honestly ourselves. I know for myself, I don't want to eat just quinoa in this recipe because it has a lot of sauce and quinoa doesn't really absorb it. So I like to do a half and half because I think that's a reasonable way for me to get the textures I want, the flavors I want, and the nutrition I want in my dish. And we're really trying to be mindful of those things, of how can we meet our goals or meet our step in moderation without trying to be uncomfortable. Because if we're uncomfortable or we don't like the taste or the flavor, we're not going to keep doing it, right? So then why bother? It's just going to be a small amount of time that we force ourselves, and then we're cranky, and then we're hangry and cranky. So that's not something that's going to be sustainable. And we're really trying to make ways that we're changing lifestyles. And for me, I'm at the point where I'm in the blend of our brown rice with our quinoa. And I've been working here for years versus some people are still at white rice. Some people are at brown rice. Some people are at quinoa, period, you know? So really, I know Heather has a blend that she likes. She does a blend of different rices and millet and quinoa. So that's definitely something that's an option too. And the really great thing about those blends that you can see at the store, whether it be a wild rice blend or a blend of multi-grains, they made those grains so that way some of them are parboiled. So that way they all take the same amount of time to cook. That's the other thing I really like to mention about grains. Usually people think brown rice is going to take 45 minutes, an hour to cook, right? But for us, it's going to take 20 minutes to do both. And that's because with our brown rice, we're buying a parboil. Parboil is not the same as like a part cooked or it is more of a part cooked, and it's not so much of a, doesn't have any nutrition removed, like some, Heather, what's that term? What?
So
yeah, the pre-cooked removes the nutrition. The par-boil just.
Oh, I think we have a weird delay. Sorry. I think what you're talking about is like that kind of rice that comes in the pouch that's already basically cooked and you just microwave it. That's different than what you're talking about with this just like a partially cooked rice that then just takes the time, but you don't have to cook it as long. Danielle, what did you want to add?
Oh, so I have a little life hack / tip. So my family doesn't really like to eat whole grains, but one thing I can get them to eat is, if you guys ever use Barilla pasta, they have a chickpea pasta, which Amber was talking about earlier. And so whenever I make pasta, I use the chickpea pasta because it makes your fuller longer. And also, let's say, because we do a lot of family events, if we're having a large family meal, I'll use the chickpea pasta because everyone gets to eat, everyone gets full instead of having to go for seconds and thirds. You get them fuller faster, which means you can buy less product and save money.
Oh, that's a great point. I trick people all the time. I'm always adding whether it be beans into my sauces, or I'm always trying to start with a pasta that's a chickpea pasta or a lentil pasta, because people don't, like, my family doesn't know the difference. And then they feel fuller quicker, and so they don't eat as much. And then that way and that's because of that fiber that we're talking about. It makes you feel fuller because you're using a whole grain and you're using legumes. Legumes is the term we refer to as our beans or peas. We're going to use edamame or peas today. That's a legume. Technically, peanuts are a legume. And then have our whole grain. So those are all different, just grain or vegetable products. And we love legumes at the kitchen because they're so easy to sneak into things. We have a recipe for a pasta dish that uses white beans in the sauce. So it's almost Alfredo-y and it makes it super creamy without any dairy or added fat, because we're just blending in white beans. And that's something I put in all of my soups because it makes you feel full. Because I know a lot of soups, you eat 2-3 cups of it and you don't feel full. By adding the beans, it makes it so it goes a lot quicker. So I'm gonna
Amber, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that you're adding the legumes to make you feel fuller, because especially with kids, they love spaghetti and they love pasta dishes. So this is a good way to kind of cut back on the carbs, but they still get the fullness of eating like their pasta.
I know next class we're going to be making a baked macaroni and cheese recipe, and with something like that, personally, I'm going to use a chickpea pasta, because I do think it's something that makes you feel full quicker, and then you don't need as much of the thing that you're trying to eat in moderation, for sure.
Amber, this is Suzanne. I'm cooking along as well, but I was really excited when I saw the quinoa on the recipe, because I attempted to prepare it once before myself and it went awfully wrong. So I was kind of scarred. So I was excited to see it. So, I just did it plain. I wasn't sure which direction to go with it, but I was excited, like I say, when I saw it. So I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. So I'll really get the taste of the quinoa. And I do like brown rice. We eat brown rice here at home. So this was perfect for me. So I'm excited about it. I can't wait.
Excellent. So I know that y'all and a few of you mentioned you're cooking along. So I think we have a handful, right, of people? Perfect. So I'll try to time it. You guys let me know how you're doing at your stages. I don't want to cook too quick or too slow. So you let me know. The thing about quinoa is it's nutty. It's a nutty grain and it has a lot of flavor. So the thing about it is sometimes I toast it in a dry pan a little bit beforehand if I really want it to be a nutty flavor. That's not really the flavor vibe I'm going today, so I'm not going to pre-toast it. It's similar to how or we toast a borio rice to make risotto, so that way it has a nutty flavor. I'm just gonna leave it whole. I do have to rinse my brown rice because it's very starchy. So I'm gonna do that quickly. Other than that, I'm gonna cook in vegetable stock. I love cooking in stock. I do it as much as I can. I know Heather mentions that she doesn't always cook quinoa in vegetable stock because sometimes she likes to do a breakfast quinoa, very similar to how people do oatmeal. So she doesn't want it to be savory. So it's really based upon how we're going to use the application. But you can cook chicken stock, that shrimp stock that Johnielle was mentioning. I really like it because we're saving all our vegetable scraps, especially at the kitchen. We're collecting all our veggie end products, and then we're making our own stocks because stocks are expensive. They have added sodium, and I don't know why veggie water costs so much money, honestly. I think you're mostly paying for packaging is my argument. But with our vegetable stock, we're already paying for all those scraps, so why not keep them? Additionally, it's going to add a lot of flavor. I know that when we're usually using just water with our grain, it makes it so that the grain's very empty. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. So when we do that, it's taking away the flavor from our dish. So then we tend to add more salt. So if we can have our grain and our base of our recipe be super flavorful, then we're not trying to pull away flavor from the dish, and we're just adding to it and neutral instead of a removing flavor. I know that's like the worst part for me when you have something like gumbo and you're like, so delicious and it's so perfect. And then I put it over rice and I'm like, oh, the flavor kind of lost a little bit, you know? And it's because the rice just didn't have enough flavor to stand on its own. So I'm gonna cook mine with veg stock. So if you give me just a second, I'm gonna rinse my brown rice. If you wanna come, you know what, I'll do a
I'd like to ask one more thing, Amber, if I could. I see you have the red quinoa and I have the light quinoa. And so it basically will absorb the taste of the meal, same way with the white as well. So what's the difference between the white and the red? No big difference?
Question. So I'm gonna give you a couple different reasons, okay? You can pick. So they genuinely are the same product. They're just gonna be different strains of the same grain. So they are just, it's like how you can have orange carrots or purple carrots or yellow carrots, right? So it's all the same strain. However, originally when America started getting on the quinoa kick, it was white quinoa. So it's most available. It's also a little bit cheaper. The grains are slightly bigger, so they are just a little bit more large in size. It's not going to change the time it cooks, and it's not going to change any of the other flavors. The only difference is obviously the color is different in the dish, but also they generally say that the black and the red quinoa stay pretty tight, so they keep a little bit more nutty flavor versus become a little softer the same way that brown rice becomes a little softer. And so some people find it a little bit more palatable if they're not used to quinoa. And then I'm rinsing my, yeah, of course. I'm rinsing my brown rice until the water comes off clear. I gotta be honest, I wasn't doing this for a long while because as I mentioned, I'm pretty lazy in the kitchen. But it turns out that if you're gonna want your rice to be nice and fluffy, then you gotta rinse it. If you don't, then the starch is gonna make it very mushy and it's gonna be basically its own grain. I feel pretty confident that y'all already know that, given that brown rice and rice in general has such a history here in Louisiana. I do know that when we're buying rice at the kitchen, we like to buy jasmine rice, the JAZZMEN, which is the local Louisiana rice. That stuff is super flavorful and has a very nutty flavor too. So if you want a variety, it's a good way to do it. And okay, here we go. You ready? I'm pretty excited. I don't make a lot of brown rice because I'm impatient. So all we're doing is in my pot, I already pre-measured my quinoa. I got 1/3 of a cup. You can do any variety, which means any color. I got 1/3 of a cup of let me back up a lot, of pre-rinsed brown rice. I'm not really worried about that added water that kind of fell in. And then I already measured, as I mentioned before, I like to pre-measure 1.5 cups of vegetable stock. Now, all of this is going in here cold. This is not the way I learned in culinary school to make rice. I learned you bring it to a boil and then add in your rice. I also learned an oven method, which I gotta be honest, I do all the time. I do it most of the time because I'm notorious for forgetting my rice, because once it hits 40 minutes, I'm already tapped out. And then I'm just gonna do a light mix because my quinoa floats. And so I want that to get, and I'm just bring it to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer. Because that's literally all I need to do to get it to cook. So I'm gonna put it on like a medium high on a gas stove, so that way it can cook pretty quickly. And then, oh, the fun part. Now we get into our vegetables. I'm obsessed with vegetables. I cut them. I love cutting them. I love cooking them. I love showing people how to use them because they're just so tasty. And so for people that don't like vegetables, it's usually because they just don't know how to make them in a flavorful way. It's very similar to, like, in my opinion, it's very similar to tofu. People say they don't like tofu, but it doesn't taste like anything. So it's really about how you cooked it. And I know growing up, my family boiled everything. And so everything was just boiled, and then they put salt and pepper, and I can't believe it's not butter on it. And so I thought I wasn't a really big fan of vegetables at all, but we're gonna be bringing out their natural flavors. We're gonna be doing them a really great service. So I'm gonna cut my ingredients in the order that I'm cooking them. So first things up, I'm gonna cut my onion. Onion's my favorite thing to show. So I'm being mindful of what I'm cooking and what I'm using my stuff for. So I know that I'm gonna want these a little bit small because I want to be able to get everything in one bite. I'm really a big fan of making sure I get to eat everything in every bite. And honestly, I do it mostly with a spoon. So an onion has a top and it's got a bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off the top of it. This is the part that's growing through the ground. Out of the ground through the sky. And then I'm gonna put that flat. I'm gonna cut my onion in half. Half of the root of the onion because it's more sisters and not twins. So I'm gonna cut mine by cutting in half so that way I keep a nice core on it. And then I'm gonna peel back the outermost layer. Now, with any of our vegetables, sometimes they get a little mold action, sometimes they start breaking down. With all of our produce, our mold or breakdown is gonna be local to the spot that it's happening, okay? So if you see that, you can just cut that part off and still use the rest of the vegetable. You don't need to waste it. I know I see a lot of people that are like, oh, that pepper has a boo-boo, so I'm just gonna throw it in the trash. We don't need to do that. Okay, so in general, if I was going to dice this, I could then make my cuts and then keep the root intact. But I'm gonna do something where I cut off the root and then I'm gonna cut it down the middle. Sorry, I'll straighten it out. So that way I can make a claw with my non-dominant hand because it's a lot harder to cut your knuckles than you use to cut your fingertips. And I'm just going to follow the natural curve of my onion. And I'm using a rocking motion. I'm going forward and down. So that way, A, if my knife isn't sharp enough, it's going to go through. But B, it's going to be able to keep everything moving in a nice, easy direction. So I'm going to put all of my onion. I'm going to go with this bowl. I give myself so many options. All my onion over here. And then I'll do the same thing with the other side. I'm using a bench scraper. So usually the way that these work is half is a bowl scraper online. And these are really great because it helps me pick everything up my cutting board without having to put a knife towards my hand. I'm trying to avoid putting sharp objects towards my hand anytime I can. So then this allows me to pick everything up and scoop it and then relocate it. And I'm just putting this in a bowl on the side. And I'm going to do my bell pepper next. The bell pepper I'm going to put in the same container as my onion because it's going to go in the recipe at the same time. I'm going to combine the ingredients based upon how I'm using them. So with bell pepper, they got multiple bumps on the bottom. Usually it's 3 or 4. And so I'm going to consider those walls. So I'm going to cut one so I can look into my pepper and see where all of my core is. And then I'm going to cut my sides so that way all my seeds stay intact, right? All my seeds are in there. And honestly, I'm on a budget, right? We all are. So I can use the bottom too. And then I can just get rid of that. So that way I have these really beautiful pieces. And if you really want to, you can take the tip of your knife and cut out the inner white. That's called the pith. There's no really reason that you have to remove it. Some people think it tastes bitter. On something like a jalapeno, it's going to be spicier. If you don't like spice, you can remove those. In the culinary world, we just remove it so that way everything looks pretty consistent. And then I'm going to cut my pepper by cutting it once down the middle, just like the onion. And then from there, I can cut my strips. Option B is I can cut my strips, which is probably preferred, honestly. So let's just make an edit on that. I cut my strips, and then I can take my whole pile of strips, turn them to the side. I could make a dice, right? I can make them really small, or I can just cut them in the center, and then I have even pieces. So that way I can just have pieces that are the same size as my onion. I want everything I'm cooking to be pretty consistent in size because I want to cook at the same rate. If we're cutting things in multiple different sizes and shapes, then they're not going to cook at the same time. And then we're going to have a raw broccoli and an overdone bell pepper. And then our onion's just going to be sad in the middle. And then I can turn the rest of my bell pepper and I can just put it based on whatever I'm comfortable with my grip and cut it in the center. Now notice I'm always removing everything I'm cutting off my cutting board as I'm going because I want to be as safe as possible. And I have all of this real estate. I'm not trying to get stuck in the corner. I want to use as much space as I have. And that way I can keep lots of space. The next thing I'm going to cut is my broccoli. So the way broccoli works is we're going to use 2 cups. Broccoli comes in a multiple pieces per bundle. What I like to do is I really love the stems. So I use them. If you're not a big stem person, that's okay. You don't have to. So we cut off the bottom, which we don't need. The other thing we're doing in restaurants is we're cutting the stem off, right? We'll use that in a second. But then we look at our broccoli. Let me move that temporarily. And what we do in restaurants, we try to cut off the stem that we don't need. And then we use the broccoli reverse. So instead of cutting flat, having all those little pieces go everywhere, we cut a little bit on the top and then it pulls apart. So that way we're keeping all that integrity of the broccoli and it keeps its shape. You can go however small you want. And you're not making all the pieces everywhere. I know I hate cleaning up raw broccoli that's wet and all the pieces stick everywhere. So I'm just trying to do myself a favor and skip that. And then it also looks really beautiful. So I can just keep cutting. So that way all those pieces are over. And I'll just keep going from there. Do I have any questions? How are my cooking along people doing?
I'm trying to keep up with you.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Do you want me to stop? Okay.
Yeah, I'm starting my broccoli.
Okay, perfect.
The good news is the more you do this kind of thing, the faster you get at it.
Oh, also true.
That's why Amber's so fast. Amber, I'll admit, I'm not the biggest broccoli stem fan. But I like how you're cutting it up nice and small. I think I could be more inclined to eat it in something like this if it was cut small like that. But I also would be the type of person that would save it to use for something else too.
What kind of other things would you use it for?
Well, I've definitely added it. I mean, this is kind of controversial or maybe a little out there, but I would put it in a smoothie. I've definitely put it into, you could also save it if you wanted to, put it in a soup or something. I think could work. But yeah, I like seeing how small you've cut it. I think the next time I make a stir fry like this, I will try to use more of the stem because, there's great nutrition there too. And I think anytime you can not waste ingredients is good.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but they say that there's more concentration of the nutrients in the stem than the tops.
I know. I just like the texture of the little tree part.
I've always been a stem person. Even
That's
with that,
funny.
I can't believe it's not butter phase of my family. I still was probably because they overcooked it, to be honest.
Hi, Amber. I have a question that other people might have. So, my quinoa rice mixture is boiling. Do you want me to turn it down? I don't know if anyone else's is, but.
Oh, I absolutely forgot about it. Yeah, absolutely. So if Heather co-spotlights my cutting board, my stovetop, I'm using a spatula action.
I'm on it. Give me 1 second here. All right. So I'm going to add this. So hopefully y'all can see both of Amber's screens here now. We see her stove and her cutting board.
To a boil. I'm going to give it a mix so that way I make sure all my quinoa is down at the bottom. But if you look, it's pretty consistent in there. And you already see some of my little squiggles coming off. And so I reduce it to a simmer and I'm going to leave the cover on so it absorbs. And then I'm just putting it all the way on low. I really love these spatulas. I use them all the time because they are heat resistant, but also they get all of those nooks and crannies so nothing gets stuck. Danielle, thank you so much for bringing that up because I definitely forgot about it.
Now,
Amber,
if you forgot and it went a little too far, you could probably just add a little extra water, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Amber, I have a question about the broccoli. Do you have to rinse broccoli before using?
So I definitely recommend rinsing all of your vegetables before using them because they've not been washed since they've been harvested, and there's been a lot of points of contact in between. So I like to wash mine. But now I'm not using any, I say that word wash, I'm not using any type of vegetable cleaner. I'm not bleaching them. I know that sounds like a weird phrase, but people were doing that during the beginning of the pandemic. Literally just rinsing them off with water, and that's going to rinse off a lot of those general contaminants that we're trying to not use. Okay, I got all my broccoli action. Put it to the side. Heather, can you start a timer for about 15 minutes?
Sure.
Guys, having a co-chef is the best. Okay, I know the recipe says 2 medium carrots. I'm gonna, sorry, 1 medium carrot. I'm doing 2 little guys because that's what I have. And I'm gonna peel these. I'm gonna use the peels. I'm putting them in my stock. The way I peel is I keep half of it on the cutting board and I just rotate, and I'm peeling about halfway, 3/4 of the way to the top, and then flipping the carrot and then finishing on the other side. And then I'll do the same thing on the other guy. Now, if you wanted to, you could grate these. You could, we're gonna have lots of different cut options. I personally really love bias cuts. And now bias just means that you're making it at an angle, which I'll show you in a second. And the reason I really love those is because then carrot isn't in that classic half moon shape. It's gonna be more consistent with the shape and size of my pepper and onion. So I'm gonna cut off the tips of both sides. I don't want those. Those go right in my stock. Carrot's my second favorite ingredient in stock. My primary is mushrooms. I'm obsessed with mushrooms. But carrots make it nice and sweet. So I'm gonna I have a little carrot. So I'm going to cut at an angle. So if you see my carrot's straight, my knife is at an angle this way. You can also keep your carrot at an angle and cut straight, which is probably a little bit safer. And then that way I'm making these really beautiful elongated cuts. So that way they're very similar to my bell pepper. And then these carrots are gonna go in to the broccoli mix because they enter at the same time. Now, if you wanted to, there's nothing wrong with a half moon. I love those too. For a thicker carrot, what we do is we cut it in half the long way, right? So it has 2 long sides. And then I can cut it at an angle. And then these are just like my bell pepper too. I'm really trying to think about, sometimes my carrot's fat, sometimes it's skinny, and trying to keep consistent with those different shapes. And then I'm never trying to cut products that are longer than my knife. So I always try to be mindful of that and then just switch and cut them wherever they need to be.
And so Amber, it seems like here your focus is mostly on making sure all those slices are the same thickness versus we don't necessarily worry so much about them being the same size. Like you have some smaller pieces, but they're all the same thickness, which will mean they'll cook the same.
Right. So all these guys will cook at the same rate because it's more about the surface contact. So they're all the same thickness, like you're saying, and it doesn't really matter how long they are. Because we're just trying to cook them through. That's going in with my broccoli. Is there anything else we need to prep? Oh, the garlic. And garlic and ginger. Let's do both real quick. I'm lying. I'm gonna wait on the garlic and ginger, and I'm gonna get into the pan really quickly, so that way we're able to start the cooking process of the other ingredients, and then we can jump back to the cutting board. All right, first things first. We're gonna do our shrimp in our pan. So what we're gonna need a spot to put them when they're done cooking. I got a bowl, and then we're gonna need a utensil to grab them, right? So I really love tongs. I use tongs a lot. I like to do long tongs no matter what I'm cooking because I don't want to get too close to oil, right? And then I'm going to need, obviously, my shrimp, and I'm going to need the oil that the shrimp are going to cook in. So, let me grab those ingredients. I'll come over here. Let me see if I can like rotate a little bit. Yeah, all right, that didn't matter. So we have all my stuff on the side. So first thing I do is I heat up my pan because I never want to start with a cold pan. Why? Couple reasons. I don't want to start with a cold pan because usually it means I washed it right before I cooked. So I don't want to have water with oil because then we have a chemical, we have a reaction. Additionally, I want our pan to be nice and hot because if we're thinking on like a micro level, our pan or metals are going to have all these little frictions, right? And so the oil actually does get stuck in those little frictions. So if I get my pan nice and hot, it's vibrating, then the oil just stays on top and it doesn't absorb into the pan. And then we have a nice, even cooking situation. So that's what I'm going to do. Additionally, I'm going to use my nifty measuring supplies to measure out my oil. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons for this situation divided. So 1 teaspoon. I know that Miss Lynetta has a whole thing about these really awesome. I don't know if you guys see these guys. Look, they're AARP measuring utensils and they all stack together and tell you how much they are. I have very little space in my drawer of all of my cooking supplies, so this is excellent. And then it easily fits in my little measuring cup. I'm so excited. Okay. I know Lynetta mentioned something about people getting these.
These are really cool. I like these little measuring spoons.
I love them too. And thanks, Amber, for mentioning that. For those who are viewing today, for our next show, the registration will ask for your address. And the reason being is because those who join us next month in June, of course, it's the 3rd Wednesday of each month, if that'll help you remember it, the dates better, you will receive a set of measuring spoons. So just remember, next month when you register, you'll see your name and your address. Add your address so you can receive your measuring spoons.
Excellent. I'm really excited because I love free swag. And also these are super convenient. The worst thing is when you get like a pen and you're like, okay, this doesn't even work. Okay, I'm mixing my grains real quick. You can already tell that when you look at them that I'm trying to think that the white outer rim of it is coming off. People kind of think they look like worms. I'm sorry. I'm gonna just turn mine. I'm gonna leave it on low because it's almost done, and I'll leave my cover on. Once I know it's like done, I'll taste it. Right, everything we're cooking, we're tasting. And then I can just double check and make sure it's completely 100% ready. My oil's taking a little bit longer to cook. I'm testing this by putting my hand over it and seeing if I feel radiating heat. I'm also moving my oil around. If it moves very easily, it means that it's hot. If it's moving very hard and it's not wanting to flow, it means it's too cold. And you should be able to see little ripples in the oil. Now the thing about our oil today, I'm using sesame. You can use canola. You can use olive oil blend. I'm using sesame, so it puts a little bit added flavor into my shrimp. And the other thing is it has the smoking point, they say, is a little bit higher, but the longer it cooks, it kind of tastes a little bit, I'm trying to think what the word is. I guess it's like kind of just tastes like more, I don't know what the word is. It tastes metallic to me, honestly. So I want to make sure I'm being super mindful because if it starts to smoke, it'll just taste a little burnt. So I feel good about this temperature. The other thing I can do is just put a little bit of my product into the oil and see if it makes a sizzle. I'm not flicking water in. And so I'm going to put my shrimp in. I do this in a clockwise motion because then I know which shrimp went in first, so I know which ones I need to turn first. And I'm doing that with my utensils because I don't want my fingers too close to the heat. The other thing I want to be really mindful of is once I put them in place and they start sticking, protein is they'll let go when they're ready. So we just leave them in the pan and they'll cook for however long we decide. And when they're done, they'll let go of the pan. The other thing is with shrimp, you'll see that the color will change. I think you can see that pretty well in the pan, maybe not. Yeah, there we go. That they're gonna start turning from this opaque shade to a really intense white. And so I'm looking at the side of them to see when that happens, and then I will flip them. It takes less than 2 minutes to do shrimp, so I don't want to lose my focus on there. So I'm gonna just stay on it, and I'm gonna watch it like a hawk because I don't want to overcook shrimp. The other thing is with shrimp, I know that I can add these back to my sauce. So if they're slightly undercooked, then they'll keep cooking in the recipe. And I also know that anytime I'm taking something off the heat, it's gonna keep cooking. So it's gonna get carryover cooking. So this guy is good. You see that, we can see. Yeah, maybe, no. Okay, no.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it. All right, so this half is white and this half is still clear. So the clear side goes down. And we also get this really nice golden color.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm really not the best at like seeing the left and the right on these cameras. So these are ready.
I can tell though, they're looking nice and I can see that they're a little golden brown. They curled up. They're looking more solid white and not that like see-through translucent looking. They're lifting up.
And then I also really like when I cook in the same pan. So if I really wanted to cook quicker, I could leave my shrimp in in a separate pan and do my veggies in one, right? But if I did that, then I'd have to wash multiple pans. And I wouldn't have that flavor from the bottom of these shrimp. So if by doing this technique, I'm able to keep all my flavor in one pan and reduce the amount of dishes I have to wash. So it's a good double feature.
Amber, I love the suggestion of adding my shrimp to the outside and working inward to help you remember which ones hit the pan first.
Right. I never
That was a great tip. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna check on my rice situation. It's perfect. So I'm gonna turn off the heat, give me a nice little cloth, and then it has a little bit of liquid at the bottom. I think you can see here. Yep. So there's still a little bit of liquid in here. So I'm giving it a nice fluff, and then I'm gonna leave it on the side of my stove to just reduce, to take off the heat and to just let it steam off. I do have the option, if I think it's gonna overcook, I can put it into a bowl, which actually, I'll just do that because I do not want it to overcook and then have any problem. You can see that that shrimp is going to take next to no time to finish.
Amber, I still have some liquid in my rice and quinoa.
Okay,
So
now have you tasted it?
not yet.
All right, let's give it a taste. If you think it's done, then we'll just remove the cover and let it finish cooking off because it'll steam off pretty quickly. If you think it's not done, you can just leave the cover on and let it keep cooking. And then I feel good about these shrimp being done because they are white all the way through. So I'm gonna take these all off, but I'm gonna turn off my heat before I do that because I can turn, as a chef, you're always playing with your heat. You're turning it up, you're turning it down, you're turning it off, you're removing your hand from the heat.
I'll move these.
And at this point, I'm just grabbing the little guys first because I know that they're definitely done. And they're also all just letting go of the pan, which is excellent. I have this one minor shrimp that looks like it got run through a cheese grater. So they're not all perfect, but it doesn't matter because they all deserve equal love. And then I'm just pulling a couple of these little crunchy bits off because I don't want them to burn. I could easily do this with a spatula too. And honestly, I love that part, so I'm gonna eat it. It's not the cutest, so if you're trying to go for presentation, you don't need that. Okay. So then I can remove all that from the pan. And then I'm gonna look at my recipe because it's always important to look at a recipe. And I just finished step 2. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another teaspoon of my sesame oil to the pan. And then this is gonna be my lubrication to get my veggies going. So that means turn the heat back on. It's already hot, so I'm not going to take approximately 5 seconds to get going. And then that's when I'm adding in my onion and bell pepper. Now I'm making sure I have my utensil ready to go because these are gonna cook up super quick.
Amber, I didn't have that one ingredient, the toasted sesame oil, but I have some sesame seeds. Can I just?
Oh, yeah. So I would recommend just using canola oil or olive oil. I really love olive oil blends where it's a little bit of canola, a lot of olive oil. And then you don't need the sesame oil at all. I like
Okay, but I'm talking about the sesame seeds.
Yeah, I love sesame seeds. They're super tasty.
So that's okay to add then.
Oh, I absolutely would recommend it.
Okay.
When should she add them though, Amber? Should she wait and add them to the end?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I would add them at the end.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
The regular oil to cook and then use the sesame seeds to help flavor it up at the end.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, I had
I'm
my
gonna
back.
switch back to
I
my
had my
cutting
back
board while
turned.
that onion and
with- I had my back turned
sorry?
with the shrimp when I was turning it over. So now I can take those out and get ready to dump all my veggies in, right?
to dump your onion and your bell pepper in.
Okay, not the carrot.
Nope, not your carrot and not your broccoli.
Amber, your timer has gone off in case you'd like to know. I think it was for your quinoa, which you already dealt with, but I just wanted to let you know.
That's good to know. It didn't take all that time. I think I didn't really do a good time of guesstimation on that. All right. So on my cutting board, I'm gonna keep prepping the last of my couple things. So I'm gonna first get a spotlight action switch over, dual spotlight, which is super cool that we can do that. And I'm going to cut up my garlic and my ginger. So let me give that a second. Heather's
I'm
making-
sorry, I lost you for a second. There you are. All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna do my garlic by cutting off the bottom just because it's tough on each one. And then I'm going to move my garlic to the end of the cutting board so that way the heel of my knife, which is the end of it, can hang off the side. Let me give it a nice love tap. And then I'm gonna peel off that skin. And then from there, I could mince it. I think my recipe wants a nice mince. I do like a good mince. So I'm gonna just rock my knife through. And because it was already splat, it's pretty much already minced. The only other thing I can do, I can leave it whole if I'm worried about burning, or I can take my non-dominant hand and I can put it on the top of my blade and do kind of like on TV and just work my knife back and forth. So that way I have a really nice mince. And that's good to go, honestly, with that garlic situation. I'm gonna just put that on the cute little measuring cup that I have. I'll put that on the side because I don't need it yet. I don't put garlic in with the onion like most people do, like I grew up doing, because I don't want to burn it. The other thing you'll notice in my pan right now is there's some coloring at the bottom. I'm also not worried about that. I'm gonna deglaze that. Deglazing is the act of adding a liquid to a pan, and it's gonna take that flavor crystals, is what I call it. But it's actually called fond, F-O-N-D. And we'll release all that from the bottom. That's flavor sound. So now that I'm starting to get color on my onion, I can drop in my broccoli and carrot. Now, it does look like I'm getting pretty crowded in this pan, so it's a good thing that. Lots of color. All right, so I give it a mix, and then I'm just gonna let it keep on keeping on. And every time I add new vegetables, it's going to remove some. It's gonna add more moisture to my pan, which is great because then I keep that pan lubricated.
What else did you add to your pan, Amber? What did you
Carrot
say?
and broccoli.
Excuse me?
Carrot and broccoli.
Okay.
That's it.
Did you add more oil or no?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now I'm gonna work on my ginger action. I said about a 1 inch of ginger. The ginger's gonna go into our sauce. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a spoon. I really like this technique. Or I take a spoon and I just rub it against the outside of my ginger, and it just peels all of that skin off. I don't even have to worry about cutting myself by doing this, right? Because I can't hurt myself with a spoon. I don't think. And then I have a nicely peeled inch of ginger while I still have something to hold on to. I know Heather really likes to take ginger, peel the whole thing, and then freeze it. So that way she can just grate it directly onto anything she's making, which is really great because everybody always has excess ginger on hand, and they don't know what to do with it after they use it in one recipe. I really like ginger because I can use it for almost everything. So what I do instead of going down is I go up, so that way I can see what I'm building. I do the same technique when I'm zesting our citrus, because then I can make sure that I know where on the rind I am. It's a fun technique.
Well, that's a good tip because I definitely went down. So mine was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So I know now to actually go up. That's a good tip.
And then you're chasing it down everywhere because then you have to scoop it all up. This way I just have it all in one spot and I can leave it in there until I'm ready to add it into my recipe. This is also not something I learned in culinary school. Just a practical thing that my chef of a husband taught me in classes to make it a little easier. Which means I'm gonna give a mix of my vegetables real quick, right? I'm just looking for great color on those. And then I can let that go and work on my sauce. So as I mentioned, I already pre-measured my sauce ingredients. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding these into my bowl for my sauce. So I got my rice wine vinegar or rice vinegar. Doesn't matter which one you use. It just has to be unseasoned. Seasoned has added sugar and a few other added ingredients that we would add to like rice, like sushi rice. So I use that. If you don't have that, it's a sweeter wine, sweeter vinegar. So I would use apple cider vinegar or something similar to that, where it's a little bit more of a mild flavor. I'm also adding soy sauce. So we use reduced sodium soy sauce. I'm currently using tamari because it doesn't have gluten and I have a gluten problem. Additionally, I'm adding brown sugar, and then I'm adding our freshly done ginger.
You know, can I say something about this sauce real quick? What I really like about this is it shows you that, you know, we don't need to avoid sodium completely. We don't need to avoid sugar completely. You know, we can still cook with these things and make a very healthy, satisfying dish. And, you know, you're just keeping it balanced. You didn't put, you know, a cup of sugar. You put a nice little modest amount of sugar in your sauce.
And it has very little soy sauce. And I put a very small amount of soy sauce. I just put a little bit of that sesame oil in there. I'm using red pepper flakes as the spice in this. If you don't have red pepper flakes, you could also use cayenne. You could use chili powder. We try to be careful with chili powder because it does have added sodium. You can also do a little bit of sambal or sriracha, something like that. But those do have a little added salt and sugar. So I like the chili flakes because I can add a bunch, or something like cayenne. And then this is good to go. I have all those ingredients for the teriyaki on there. Now, as I mentioned in step 4, I got to take a look at my vegetables, because if they're not cooking fast enough, then
Amy, did I miss adding the cornstarch or not yet?
no, ma'am, we're not going to add the cornstarch yet. It's going to do a very
Okay.
side thing. Wow, these vegetables are getting super bright colors, so we know that they're activating, but I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, so that way I can try to steam off the rest. And I'm just going to cover that with a pan because I don't have a lid big enough. And then, as you mentioned about this cornstarch action, so I'm going to take my cornstarch and I'm going to take my, I'm going to take water. So the thing about this side thing is called a slurry. And the really cool thing about slurries, this is a 1 cup, here we go. The really cool thing about slurries is they're the same concept as a roux without having added unnecessary fat. And you don't have to do it at the beginning. And so I change my mind a lot when I'm cooking. So I like to have it at the last minute as an option because I don't want to have any problems with changing my mind. So this is going to make it thick at the end. So I added half a cup of water. I use cold water. Tap water is fine. You just don't want hot water. And then I'm adding the cornstarch. And then I'm going to mix this really.
I'm sorry, say that that amount of water again.
Half a cup of water, 1
Okay.
tablespoon of cornstarch. And then I'm just going to mix this so it makes one white powder substance. Now, in my recipe, I'm not mixing this yet because I thought that my veggies would be done more, but because I already have a time on here, I'm just grabbing it out now because then I can make sure it's good to go. And all I have to do is give it a mix right before I use it.
Amber,
So I can have
how much cornstarch did you say?
1 tablespoon.
Okay.
So this is going to thicken our recipe super duper quick and easy. Okay, so that should be just
Amber,
about done.
Amber, have we used the garlic yet? I still see it on my counter.
No, ma'am, I haven't added it yet. I'm gonna wait till my broccoli feels pretty good.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna add the same. Yeah, I know it definitely feels sometimes like you're at the wrong pace when you're cooking or you forgot something when we're cooking along. Oh, perfect. You can see that water got a lot of my fond off, and these veggies are good to go. So this is the time where I'm adding edamame because, well, that's what John Yell picked, but also because we really like edamame because it's a legume. Edamame is actually soy. It's soy pods. You usually can see it at restaurant, like Asian restaurants. Inside its outer layer, usually it's boiled or steamed and then covered in salt. So we're adding those in because they are really cheap and they're accessible and they add a really nice texture and color. But you can add peas just the same. Mine already thawed, but if they're frozen, that's okay. And then I just added my garlic in now because I wanted to keep its super fragrant flavor. So I'm going to give that a second to set. And then from there, I can take a fork. Now, seeing if something's tender is the very sign to taking a fork and sticking it into our vegetables to see if it pierces it. And so that means different things to different people. If you like your veggies mushy, cook them a little bit more. If you like your veggies nice and crunchy, cook them a little less. I know Heather likes hers a lot more crunchy than I do. Just like being a lazy chef, I'm kind of a lazy chewer. But also for me, which is just fair. So I'm just taking a fork, and if it stabs it really well and easy, that means I'm good to go. So all my vegetables, it's sliding through really easy, and I'm happy with that. So that is fork tender for me. So I'm going to leave that. I added my edamame. And we're waiting until that's bright green. So that's step 6. And now we're adding our sauce. So I'm going to add my sauce directly to the pan. And this allows us to continue cooking, but also adding flavor to our vegetables. Now, when we're adding our salt ingredients to the end, it allows all our flavors to develop, and it allows it to be a flavor on the front of our taste buds. The other thing that I love about soy sauce that isn't something in salt is that it has umami. Umami is that flavor in animal proteins that makes you want to keep eating more. So it's also found in fermented foods, aged products, so like Parmesan cheese, soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce. You can also find it in canned tomato products. So it's really just something that just makes you want to eat more. So that's one of our main flavors. We're also building flavor. And that's why we're able to do less salt.
So have we added the sauce?
Just added the sauce.
Okay, I can add it now.
Yep. So all of your ingredients except for your slurry should be in there. And I'm just letting that cook down and add the flavor into the vegetables while the vegetables are finished cooking.
Amber, how high is your heat at this point? Just out of curiosity.
Mine's at medium high only because I have a bigger pan. If I was using a smaller pan, I could use a lower heat.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to take my slurry and I'm going to give it one more mix. That way all the cornstarch is mixed in. I use clear containers so everybody can see really well. It's very, I guess it looks milky. And I'm going to pour this in. Now this is going to do very quick. It's going to start to cook down and then boil a little bit and then thicken and turn almost into a gravy. This is how we have a shrimp and grits recipe that we do, and we do the same technique. Instead of making a roux, we add a slurry at the end. And I'm just trying to make sure I mix that in because I want the slurry to completely combine with my sauce. If you look, when I move my utensil, it's already going.
Heather, can you spotlight Amber's cooking because it's small?
Yeah, let me take away this one. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
There we go. All right.
Yay, thanks.
So when I move my utensil, I can see that the liquid is already going slower because the cornstarch is activating. So I'm just gonna give that about a minute, and I know it'll be done. It'll be a nice saucy recipe. So you can see that it's bubbling. You can see that. Let me move it.
I love how colorful it is. So colorful.
Now we're always trying to eat with our eyes. So when we're cooking, when we're eating, the last sense we're using is taste, right? We're always smelling, we're seeing, we're hearing. So we want to be using all those other senses. So by having bright colors, by having lots of fun textures, by having a bunch of different sounds when we're cooking, it makes us want to eat it. And so we're really trying to play to those senses. So that way it's a super flavorful dish. So my sauce is good to go. So this is the time I am going to add in my shrimp because I want that to coat over. Okay. And then I'm also going to add in some sesame seeds, as was mentioned. This is completely optional. Just got a little bit so that way I'm on the same page as all of our audience members. I have tuxedo sesame seeds. It's what I give to our kids class too because I really like all the colors. So I turned off my heat, and because my shrimp are hot, I don't need them to keep cooking. If they're a little raw, I will leave the heat on so that they get a little bit more cooked. And then I'm just mixing that in. And I'm gonna leave that to the side. And this recipe is ultimately good to go, but I'm gonna let the flavors marry while I get a quick action on my cutting board, which I have 5 minutes, which is the perfect amount of time to make ice cream. So I'm gonna grab my fruit from my freezer quick, and give me 1 second. I'll grab that.
This is gonna be fun because this is sort of a little bonus. Now you have your lunch, your shrimp stir fry, or maybe you are gonna make this later for dinner, and now we have a nice little bonus recipe. It's so quick and easy, as Amber just mentioned. And it's fun.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that we've done a lot in our community classes here, both for kids, families, adults. Everybody loves this recipe.
Yeah, so I'm going to use a mixture of, I'm making a banana and mango sorbet. I'm using a mixture of banana and mango. Now, if you don't like banana, you don't like mango, you have an allergy, doesn't matter. You can pick one or the other. You can add in some other frozen fruits. I hear pineapple works well. Peaches should work. So it's really those those fruits that have that.
As I mentioned earlier. Oh, I was saying, as I mentioned earlier, I do have an allergy, so I did switch the banana out and I switched to peaches. So I did make that switch.
It should come out just the same. I want to hear how it comes out. I'm breaking apart all my mango chunks. I freeze my banana in separate little pieces. So I'm just gonna add the 3 bananas in. If you freeze your bananas, please, I'm praying, please just peel them. Like, that's what I gotta, like, please don't freeze skin on bananas. Peel them. You can freeze them whole, or you can freeze them in little bite-sized pieces. They're really great for smoothies, but they're really great for this sorbet. I am gonna add my vanilla.
Amber, do we have to wait until they're super white, right, to freeze them, or can we freeze them when they're yellow?
Okay, so I personally froze mine while they're yellow because I don't really like overripe banana flavor. So that's up to you. I know that at the kitchen, we wait till they're overripe because then we're able to have, they're like really sweet and they give the flavor of sweetness without having to have all the added sugar. But for personal use, I usually wait till, because in New Orleans, they're either green, they're for like forever, they're yellow for like a second, and then they're brown. So I try to catch them right before they're brown. But it's whatever stage works best for you. There's really no rules. I am adding a little water. You might need to add a little more. It's just gonna help get the blender going.
Okay, just before you were talking, you put the vanilla in, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I have mango, banana, I got some vanilla, and then I added the water. So it's all the ingredients. If you wanted to, you could add mix-ins right now. If you had like that peanut butter powder, or you had cocoa powder or cayenne or cinnamon, you could add those in now. I'm gonna add in a little bit of mint action on top. So I'm gonna put this on the blender, so I'm gonna mute real quick. But I'll focus on the blender so you can see it.
And the other thing I wanted to mention with this recipe is you can also do this in a food processor. If you have a food processor, but maybe you don't have a blender that's really strong and powerful, it might work a little better for you in a food processor. With the blender, you kind of have to give it a little time, and you'll see there she's using her tool to sort of press it down. And as she said, she added a little water to kind of get it going. You don't want to add too much water, of course, because the idea is that the frozen fruit gives you the consistency of that nice creamy, sorbet or ice cream kind of texture. And this is a great recipe because for those of us that like frozen creamy treats, I know I will admit it's my favorite thing in life to eat ice cream. This is a great way that you can enjoy something like that and feel like you're not having too much added sugar, too much added fats, because you're just using whole fruit here. You've got fiber. It looks like she's getting a good texture there. I can see.
Okay, so as you can see, it took me approximately 5 seconds. And so what I'm gonna do is I have.
You started it?
She's done.
Yeah.
Done. Blended it. It's done. You can,
Okay. Let me do it. Hold on.
I'm doing the blend.
yeah.
Wait, Josh was so quiet. I didn't.
She muted so you didn't hear her loud blender. Tell me what it is exactly.
You'll probably hear mine.
Okay, so I have
I'm gonna put you all on mute so you don't have to hear that.
so I'm gonna cut a little bit of my mint action just so I have a nice. I like to have it pretty big pieces, so because I really love mint. So we have these fun containers in my house. I don't know why. I like to thrift containers, so I can just scoop that in. Now, if you want this to sit a little bit longer, you're absolutely welcome to just put it in the freezer. But And I'm just gonna scoop it directly in because I can. I went with a very small ice cream scoop, but like I really didn't need to because I'm gonna eat a lot of this. And then I can just put a little bit of that mint action on top, and it's good to go. Is my sort of one section really quickly of our rice action. So I'm going to use, per the recipe of my vegetables, is I'm going to do 1 cup of my grains. And I really encourage you to try to follow the nutrition label for the volume of how much we're trying to eat. And then I'm going to take 1 cup, and then a little cup. Of I really love bowls. I'm sorry. I'll put a little bit in here just of my veggie stir fry. And if you're really feeling super fancy, I just put a little bit of that green onion on there that I grow in my garden. So then I have nice color, texture, and I'm good to go.
So that's 1 cup of the serving of the rice and 1 cup of the vegetables and shrimp.
It's a half a cup of your grain and a cup and a fourth of your shrimp with your veggies.
Okay.
And that should give you about 4, you should get 4 servings of that based on that serving size. Amber, do you want me to share a little bit of the nutrition facts while we're kind of wrapping up here and people are plating?
Yeah.
Since I have it on my screen. So this dish that Amber did today, the shrimp stir fry, for 1 1/4 cup of that stir fry, you're only looking at 230 calories, which is very low. I know for us at GCCM, when we're designing recipes, we always try to keep the calories, somewhere below 500 if we're watching our weight. We have a total of 5 grams of fat. Only 0.5 grams of that is actually saturated fat, which is the one that we care about the most, right? We don't want to be eating a ton of saturated fat. We want to try to get more of the mono and polyunsaturated, which we've done here today with the types of oil we've used. And by using shrimp, it's lower in saturated fat than some of our other proteins. We've got 4 grams of fiber, which is always awesome. As Amber said, we're always looking to get lots and lots of fiber. And then we have 580 milligrams of sodium, which is great, especially when we're thinking about something like an Asian stir fry dish. If you order something like this out in a restaurant, you're going to be looking at least double that sodium. And then you've got 24 grams of protein, which is amazing. Yeah. And look how beautiful these dishes are.
Yeah, I really wish my lighting was better because here I can see like super vivid color action.
Well, when your pot stove, it was very colorful. Oh, all right, let's go ahead. I'm going to remove these spotlights so we can see everybody's plates there. Lynetta, show your plate again. Let me see that.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. You can see it a little bit better if you go in the top corner and hit for view, switch to gallery so you can see everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just switched this back to gallery view for our video. So if y'all want to switch back to gallery view now, we can see everybody's lovely faces. We can see everybody's dishes that they're sharing. Suzanne, that looks great.
Thank you.
Janielle, how did you make out in your kitchen over there?
Here you go. Can you see it now?
This one is not working for me.
There it is.
But
yes,
all my other food is done. I just have to plate it.
Good. All right. Awesome. Does anybody have any questions as we're wrapping up here?
Well, I'd like to know the name of that nice little quiet blender you have.
Vitamix. I'm so jealous.
The Vitamix is the most expensive thing I own.
Okay.
I will say I got a Vitamix 1 year on Amazon Prime Day. You can sometimes get some good deals, and you can definitely find some good deals on refurbished models, which I think I'm pretty sure the one I bought was actually refurbished. And I want to say I might have only spent 200, which is still a lot of money, but they normally are like $400 and $500.
Exactly.
If you do a lot of blending, it can be a pretty good investment in the kitchen. But you can get by with a less expensive model for sure.
It was
I'm
so
late.
quiet. I didn't even know she had finished with the sorbet. It was quiet. Okay.
Vitamixes are awesome.
Now,
My food is delicious.
oh, good. That was my next question. And did anyone
I
that
know. I'm about to taste
it?
mine.
I think Beverly is cooking along. How is it? Hate to put you on the spot, but
Delicious.
Well, I did taste the quinoa, when you told me to in the pot, and it was really good. So now I know I can eat it, and it's tasty. So
perfect. Heather, can you unmute
super good.
Beverly?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm trying here. Beverly, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself and tell us what you think of the dish?
The dish is very good. I like to keep my veggies chewy. I don't like them,
Yeah.
So cooked that they're soggy.
Me too. I like them crisp.
Now, my kids' classes is I always say, what did you like? What would you do different next time to make it better? And so are there any things that you would make a personal spin on and try on your own next time?
For me, I would add mushrooms.
Ooh, I love it.
Oh, love
Yeah. I have to tighten up on my slurry. I have to tighten that up a bit. And also, I have to purchase another blender.
yes.
I think at this point, it's a
Me
business
too. One
expense.
thing I would add is purple cabbage.
Ooh,
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
yeah, I think what's cool about stir fries is you can use that as a template. It's a basic template, and you can use whatever protein you like, chicken instead of shrimp. You want tofu, maybe. You want to add or subtract any vegetables. You can do whatever you like.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, all I can say is this is our first show in our series of Wellness Wednesday, and it has been fabulous. For those who are joining, don't forget to register. You'll be receiving a registration link to join us the third Wednesday of June. I don't have that date before me, but we will be celebrating Juneteenth. So we have some prize recipes for you all, but I will also ask for your name and address for your registration so you can receive our measuring spoons, and that will be for our next class. Okay, Heather just told us June 16th is our next class. So hope to see you then. Amber, wonderful job. Heather, thanks so much. And also Suzanne, great hosting. And to all who joined us today, I see a couple of volunteers and I see a couple of new faces. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Hit me up with an email and let me know how you enjoyed the show. And hopefully you'll join us again. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Hey Heather, is the video, would the recording be available for viewing later?
Yes, we will have it available on AARP Louisiana YouTube station.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Steele. I'll make sure you get the link for that. Okay, I'll remember to email it to you.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Be
Bye.
safe. God bless.
God bless you
Bye.
too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.